The Supreme Court's decision today not to make a ruling on the Pennsylvania law and allowing the new mail in deadline to go as planned is actually even worse than if they had just struck down the law as it is. And I'll tell you why. So, a quick summary. In an kind of unexpected decision, Amy Coney Barrett basically said, hey, I'm not going to make a ruling on the Pennsylvania, I'm not going to make a vote on the Pennsylvania mail-in voting law that I talked about last week, or not last week, a few nights ago. Basically, just a quick summary. Pennsylvania passed a law extending the mail-in voting ballot, the mail-in ballot reception deadline by 6 days, which meant that mail-in votes that were sent in by election day had until November 9th to reach the Board of Elections to get counted. And this is just to make sure that, there's going to be a lot of overload for the USPS. It's already established election precedent that any vote casted by election day is a vote that needs to be counted, or that ought to be counted. Pennsylvania is simply giving a little bit of extra time to deliver those votes from the drop boxes and from their postmarked, houses to the place where they are supposed to get counted. That's the only thing this law is supposed to do. The Pennsylvania Republican Party sued to have that law struck down, saying that it could, quote unquote, I don't know if that's a direct quote from them, but this is what a lot of Republicans have said, that it could flip the results of an election night victory for Trump, obviously. That they're afraid that if you count mail-in votes, so basically that the vote count on election night is going to favor Trump, and they think that it's anti-democratic to actually count all of the votes in a state, even if it takes a little bit longer than election night. I need to really, really iron in, all of these votes were cast and will have been cast by November 3rd, the scheduled election day. So per every single election, presidential election precedent, there are votes that deserve to be counted. And in every election, that's exactly what has happened. Usually votes are all received by the end of election day. And what will happen is people will spend about 3 weeks counting them. By the end of the night, in most elections, the precincts are usually able to count enough votes that it is mathematically near impossible that they don't know exactly who the victor is going to be. So they will usually project the victor. That's why it always says projected winner of Pennsylvania is Barack Obama, right? Because they don't know 100% sure, because it's going to take them about 2 weeks to count all of the votes and double check and recertify the election. But they always project a winner. The only difference is in this election, it's very plausible that a lot of states won't be able to project a winner. Other than that, the process remains exactly the same. The election typically gets certified somewhere in the 3rd or 4th week of November. By then, all of the votes will be counted. So the Pennsylvania Republican Party grasping at straws, trying to get the Pennsylvania Supreme Court basically to say, hey, we're not going to let you flip the results of the election by simply counting all of the votes. They brought it to the Supreme Court, and the Supreme Court basically said, we're not going to make a ruling, or they basically tied it 4-4 because John Roberts sided with the liberals, and then all of the Trump appointees and all the other Bush appointees were like, no, we want to subvert democracy. So it was 4-4, which meant that the Pennsylvania Supreme Court ruling was upheld by a lack of decision by the U.S. Supreme Court. And then what that basically meant for Pennsylvania is that the mail-in ballot deadline got extended. So now the deadline remains extended, and what was expected when Amy Coney Barrett joined the Supreme Court was that she was going to be the 5th vote to overturn that law. So it would become 5-4, and that law would get overturned. What she said was, I do not have enough information to make a ruling about this before the election. So what it sounds like she's saying is that the Supreme Court, in a 5-4 majority, is basically saying we're not going to overrule the Pennsylvania Supreme Court, and this mail-in ballot deadline can stay extended, which she is saying. But what she is also basically saying is we are opening ourselves up to making a ruling later. So what's happening now is I released a video on Monday, and I'm sure a lot of people have been saying this, because of the Supreme Court, you can't rely on the Supreme Court to keep these deadlines extended. Go drop off your ballot in person. The Supreme Court's response to that is basically, no, 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 no. We want you to mail out these ballots thinking they're going to get counted. But then after Election Day, we want to be able to turn around and say, actually, those ballots don't count. So basically, what you want to do here is you want to, let me put it differently. Basically, what conservatives are doing is they're trying to get you to believe that your ballot will be counted if you mail it out and it reaches next Thursday. So that way, when they make a ruling saying none of those ballots count, that the maximum number of ballots possible have been mailed out, and most of those ballots will be Democratic ballots. They're trying to bait Democratic voters into mailing out their mail-in ballots so that as many of them are as invalidated as possible when this ruling comes out. Do not treat conservatives on the Supreme Court, outside of the Supreme Court, in the Republican Party with an ounce more charity than that. So when Amy Coney Barrett says, I'm not going to make a ruling on this, she is a Trump appointee. You saw her in the hearings being evasive to all of the questions about will you make a ruling on the election. Do not, you should go and drop off your mail-in ballot in person under the presumption that every single person who has implied that they want to reduce the number of people voting in this election, including President Donald J. Trump, and anybody appointed by said people, such as Amy Coney Barrett, are going to do whatever they can to make sure your vote doesn't count. That includes baiting you into mailing out your ballot thinking it's safe with a Supreme Court ruling like this, or a lack of ruling rather, and then turning around, it's a bait and switch, right? Turning around and basically saying, psych, we're actually going to invalidate your ballot if you mailed it out and it wasn't received by November 3rd or November 6th in North Carolina's case. So this is entirely a political tactic. This is completely within the MO of a Brett Kavanaugh or a Neil Gorsuch. These guys do not care about your right to vote. And guess what? If I'm wrong, you lose absolutely nothing. You took an extra step to guarantee that your vote got counted. But I'm not wrong, all right? I'm not wrong. These guys want to stop you from voting, and the best way they can do that is make you think that it's safe to mail out your vote so that once it gets there on November 5th, they can turn around on November 6th and say, actually, psych, none of it counts. And that's precisely what they're doing. They have left themselves open to a post-election ruling retroactively invalidating any mail-in ballots that reached their precincts after November 3rd. This is exactly what they're trying to do. Look out for that ruling and do not be a sucker for them. Get your vote counted. Get your vote counted. Drop your mail-in ballot off in person at your county board of elections, at your municipal clerk. The video linked at the end of this video is going to have a link to my comprehensive voting guide for Wisconsin, Pennsylvania, and North Carolina. If you're in any other states, your voting law has not changed. I'm going to hope that you know what you're doing. Like Michigan, Florida, Ohio, all of these places have pretty rigid mail-in voting deadlines. But Wisconsin, Pennsylvania, and North Carolina, get your votes in, drop everything off by election day at the county board of elections, at your municipal clerk. Don't even use the drop box. If you have to use the drop box, fine, but it's much, much, much preferred that you go straight to your county board of elections, because it reduces the chances that the friggin' Proud Boys are going to show up and torch your mail-in ballot on November 4th or November 3rd evening, right? And guess what? If that happens, they're not going to be able to find you in time to get you to cast a new ballot. So they're just going to be like, oh, hey, I'm sorry, we just don't have enough time. The procedure isn't there. Protect yourself from the imperfections, from the anti-democratic flaws in our system. Just go to your county board of elections and drop off your mail-in ballot. And if you don't know how to do that, if you have any trouble along the way, if you feel like there's any reason your ballot's going to be invalidated, just go vote in person. They cannot take away your vote if you vote in person. Period. Good luck.